Cheers.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers to you and your big year.
I want you first. Let me see.
Wow.
It makes you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside.
It really
right?
does. I can feel it going down.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how'd you get into Scotch? Has it always been like your drink of choice?
Not always, no. I was actually doing a play in New York at the Public Theater, and a friend of mine, Jacob Ming Trent, got a bottle of this for opening night.
Ah.
And so he's like, you guys, you gotta try this. And we all tried it, and we were like, that's delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it when they... so I still feel it. It's flavorful, like
it
smoky.
Is, yeah.
I love when there's like special meaning behind, like, you know, you have that whole memory of...
Sure.
I do want to start a little bit like at your childhood, and I'm curious.
Come on.
Was there a moment in your childhood that you knew you wanted to act?
The first time I got bit by the bug.
Oh, yeah.
I was a freshman in high school, and I did this musical Godspell. It was the Troubadours production at my high school, and we did it Thanksgiving weekend, 3 performances only, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And freshmen were unheard of to be in the Troubadours production, and 4 of us made it. It was like a coup d'etat. So we did this production, and every night we would get a standing ovation. And Saturday night in particular, we carried Jesus Christ out after he like comes down off of the cross. And you sing this song, "Prepare ye the way of the Lord." And as we're bringing him through the audience, like the whole place stands up and they like start applauding. And my friend and I go up on stage, and as we're taking our bow, we say, we gotta keep doing this shit. Like, it was the biggest high. I was an athlete. I played football and basketball in high school, so I loved the thrill of the crowd and performing in that way. And it was the first time that I had experienced it outside of athletics, right?
Yeah.
So it was magical. And you keep sort of chasing that feeling, that high, because it's a natural high. And I think that's when I first knew that it was something that I could fall in love with, but I didn't think it was practical to pursue it full tilt. So when I went to Stanford for school, I was an economics major.
Oh, okay.
And then I switched my major to drama after 2 years.
What did you take away from your time in school? Because it seems like it's just something, you know, something you have just, you know, even as you were young, that you felt that. And so what did you actually like learn from your studies that applied?
I learned a ton.
Okay, you do.
Yeah, there's script analysis.
Okay.
There's how you use your voice, speech, like learning different dialects, etc. A way of approaching the work. I think you learn a certain degree of professionalism by having to put in your 10,000 hours, so to speak. There's just certain ways you can tell when you come across another actor who has training, you speak the same language.
Okay.
And then sometimes when people are very new to the process, they don't know that they're supposed to have their lines memorized. They don't know that instead of like in a fight scene that you don't actually hit somebody, but you fake a punch. You know, like there's stage combat, all sorts of little things that we take for granted. I learned a tremendous amount.
Okay, so you're in school and when did you go to New York or LA first?
I went to Stanford and then I went to New York. I went to grad school at NYU.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who, maybe in the beginning of your career, or maybe not even necessarily the beginning, but gave you like the best piece of advice for show business?
A teacher of mine in grad school by the name of Ron Van Loo said, be very careful with how you use your time. It's the one thing that you can never get back.
Oh.
I find that invaluable.
Yeah, for anyone.
For anyone doing anything. But like when you're an actor and there's a lot of people who are trying to have your time, and innocuously so, like not even in a malicious sort of way. They just want to like, hey man, how you doing? Great to see you, blah, 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 blah. And then sometimes you're like, oh, I need to memorize lines. You know, oh, I need to think about where this character is in this particular time. So every once in a while you have to like politely excuse yourself so you can go do your work and then come back and be a gracious human being, you know? Yeah. I
think that you only have so much energy like in the day, so sometimes you just have to prioritize that.
Sure.
I like that.
Thanks, Heather.
I'm always like diving deep into life.
I like this. I like this.
So 15 years.
Yeah.
Great roles. And did you always feel like you still needed to that Emmy win? Like, was it always like you were reaching for that, or were you pretty content along the way?
I think I was fairly content. I didn't know if an Emmy was ever necessarily in the cards, because it's not for most actors. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a pretty...
Can we cheers to what? Let's just cheers to the Emmy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You just got to get that out there.
It's a cool club.
So, like, this is all just like the cherry on top.
Total cherry on top. Like, when I got Chris Darden, People versus OJ, I knew that it had the potential to be something pretty special. I knew all the people that were attached to it already. And I do remember the first time that our DP came up to me on set and said, Sterling's gonna win an Emmy. And I was like, hey man, let me just do my work. Like, let me focus on this, and if something happens, then it happens. But it was such a surreal moment, Hillary, like, to actually walk up on that stage, to feel the enthusiasm of my peers, of that whole audience. Like, people stood up.
You got a standing
like, there was a
ovation.
real appreciation, you know, and I felt so humbled. And not only just the people in the room, but like, I could feel like my friends and family and fans across the country being really, really happy for me.
Oh my gosh.
It was a wonderful, wonderful moment.
So with This Is Us, which I watched the first 2 episodes, I loved it.
Thank you.
What I love about it is at the very end, like the first 2, my jaw like was dropped. There was just those little twists at the end.
Yeah.
And I shed a tear. It was just so heartwarming.
Thank you.
I loved it. Like your character, you have kids in life. I was curious, what's the biggest curveball that parenting has parenting in general has thrown your way?
That's a good question.
Is there anything you just...
Finding balance. Like, really, before, I look at a lot of my peers who are working right now that don't have children, and they have a lot of time to dedicate to things that are purely career-related, that I sometimes wish that I had that time to do. But I know that at the end of the day, my children are way more important than anything that has to do with my career. And my wife. And finding the time to give all of those things so that nothing becomes sort of like falls by the wayside, but everything feels like it's getting the attention that it deserves, that's the biggest challenge.
Biggest shock.
Yeah, for sure.
I really loved something else you said about don't let the highs get you too high and the lows get you too low.
Sure.
Who kind of instilled that in you?
That's interesting. So my wife is a member of this sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. And there's a poem that she had to memorize by Rudyard Kipling called If. And one of the lines in it is, if you can meet with triumph and disasters and treat those 2 imposters just the same. It made so much sense to me because you can easily allow life, the way in which you relate to life to be completely circumstantial. So if things are going well for you, you're on a high. And if things are going poorly for you, you're on a low. But really, my reaction to the circumstances determines how I experience them.
Right.
Like, I may not be able to control the circumstances themselves, but I get a chance, I have a say in how I react to them. And so life is much easier for me when I can not become too crestfallen by low times and not become too overly ebullient by high times. Like, I appreciate them and I respect it, but they won't last forever. I'll still be here and I still have to be able to be happy with who I am even when the Emmy is 10, 15 years away.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's so important. If you could have a drink with anyone, who would it be?
Oh, wow. With anyone. As he's now gone, just as of this year, it'd been really interesting to sit down with Muhammad Ali, who probably doesn't drink because he's a devout Muslim and whatnot, but what a fascinating human being. And as I move into this next phase of my career, where people are asking what I think about things and not just to show up and say lines and then go home, he's such a wonderful role model for using the platform of his art, the sweet science, to make it into something much larger. Like what he was, he boxed, but what he was so much more than just being a boxer. And I think about that example as I move forward in my career, that I act, but it's not the totality of who I am, and how to make use of this platform to share what I think is important in the world.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What would be like your first question that you'd want to ask, even if it's just kind of like a silly question?
Was it hard? Was it hard to say no? Was it hard to feel unpopular or unloved in the moment? Or was that not even a consideration?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, right. Did it even face him?
Yeah, I would really like to know that, because like I find myself making decisions and then sometimes like, well, that might not be popular and this and that, but if indeed it is at the end of the day what I believe in my soul of souls, you know, popularity be damned.